Okay. So this is Twin Flames Undercover, and I'm back again with another installment. So this is going to be episode 2. Um. Just leading on from the last episode. I guess the kind of major events that happened around that was breaking my collarbone in his class, and So I don't know how I begin talking about this. So it kind of like, you see, in the training, our energies had completely merged. We were like a family, and they had merged to such a level of purity and height that, like, I was saying that I could feel a third energy come in on us, like a third person, like a baby. I thought I'd have a baby with him. And then what happened was, I think, like, let me see, our energies had merged, and it was a bit of an addiction for me as well, I think, on both sides. But I think for my family was, I think it's almost like both our families had opposite issues, and it was like we both had opposing issues. It was almost like a perfect match, in the negative respect. But I think, like I later found out that week was the same week he met his now wife. So it was almost like he changed tracks. And when he changed tracks, I got literally taken off the grid, quite literally, like... So, because I could feel all the energy just drained from me, like I was dead. And then I totally lost my confidence, and I went into a high level throw with a new student. And it was really weird because normally he would be very good at calling stuff, especially when it comes to techniques and who trains with who and things like that. Like, he would always mix up higher level people with lower level people and stuff. But this was just such a really bad call, It was such a really bad call. I was with a new person, and the new person was doing the throw, and it was a high level throw that was done like by black belts. I think I had done it once with a black belt person who was showing me. And I was like 4th Q at that stage. So, like, it was really bizarre that we were even face to face with one another. It was really bizarre that he had put us together, and I don't know. I mean, sometimes I did think it was deliberate because it was very out of character of him, and like, I went through various stages of paranoia in the years that came since, but like, sometimes I think it was deliberate, and other times I guess I just don't know. But it was so out of the ordinary for him to make a call like that with such a high level throw that I just, looking back, I was really baffled by it, And so then what happened then? Oh. Jeez. Sorry, that was my cat. But yeah, so anyway, so this guy did the throw on me to go over his head as he went onto the ground, and he was a new guy, much younger than me, just much slighter than me as well, like. And I knew he had done the throw wrong, and I didn't ground myself soon enough. I should have grounded myself soon enough and said, no, we're not doing this. But I was so nervous because I had felt his energy pull out of me, and it was like I didn't have the confidence that I used to have, So it was like the confidence I had in him had totally gone, and I didn't even know why yet. But once I realised that had happened, I knew that was why, that he was with someone else, and that's why my energy had left. But that was like, that came to me after years of research, like. And then so anyway, I was terrified that I was going to land on this guy's chest and kill him, because he was much smaller than me. I thought, I'm going to kill this guy, I'm going to land on his chest, he's going to die, he's going to be dead. So to break my fall, I went left instead of right, and I snapped my left collarbone in two. And like, I was writhing on pain on the floor of the dojo in front of everyone in the group. And so it was pretty horrific, actually. And the guy that did the throw was like saying he was sorry, and he was really sorry and stuff. And I didn't want him feeling like that. I was like, it's not your fault, it's not your fault. But I actually do think that the teacher had a certain amount of liability with putting us together for a throw that high level. So I still have question marks over that. But so anyway, I was just hunched over in pain. I was hunched over in pain, and I couldn't move. And I was writhing in pain and screaming like I've never screamed before. And some strange things happened. Like, I had it in my head that I would go to the main university hospital. And but actually there was a hospital around the corner. But he must have picked up on it telepathically, because he didn't even think of the hospital around the corner. He took me to the hospital that I was thinking of. And that kind of occurred to me later as well, that he didn't have his own incentive of there being a hospital around the corner, you know. And then we were about halfway to the hospital, and actually it was really far away, you know. So, and we were going over the difficult area on the road where there was a lot of traffic and a lot of traffic lights and junctures and stuff. And I could just feel myself lift out of my body. I was like, I don't want to be here. It was like the only joy in my life was from training. And it was like everywhere else I went in my life, I didn't feel safe, you know. And it was so difficult, because I was like, I don't want to be in this kind of pain anymore. You know, it was like, it was such a manifestation of what was going on in my life and what I was conditioned to believe, you know, by all the people around me. And it was like I was given a narrower and a narrower and a narrower and a narrower path. And that was like, you know, and you know, and here was this place that really opened me up. And suddenly I was back in the tiny sliver of existence again, you know, where literally, like, my breath was weak. I was like, my body was weak. I just didn't want to be attached to my body anymore. I was like, I could feel myself leaving. I was like, I'm leaving. I know I'm dying. I know I'm dying. And so it was really him. I could feel his energy come in on me, like he was begging me to stay, you know. And I know he was probably afraid of, like, me taking him to court as well, which I never did. And there is that practical element. But it was like, you know, it was like, give me a reason to be here, because I don't want to be here, you know. And I could just feel his energy come in on me, and like inviting me back into the world. And if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't have stayed, you know. I literally wouldn't have stayed. And anyway, I managed to hang on purely for that reason, because we were so connected, like. And so we went to the hospital, and I forget the details of it, but I remember the telepathy between us was so intense. It was like, oh, it was so intense. It was, maybe it was because I was so close to, I came so close to dying at one point, that it was so close. It was like I could see through everything. It was like I could see through him. I could see everything. It was like I could see the entirety of his soul in relation to mine. and he stayed in the hospital for a little while, and then he asked to contact my dad, but I actually stopped him, and I shouldn't have. Looking back now, I shouldn't have. But I thought my dad would go ballistic and that he'd kill him or something, and I just was being protective of him, because I just thought my family are so hysterical that it would just cause more stress, and I just felt like I felt better that they weren't there, and so then it was really weird when I was in the hospital too. They never manipulated the shoulder or the collarbone. And then for a while they thought I had injured my back, and they put me in a head brace, and I thought I was, and then I went into hysterics because I thought I was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. So I got really hysterical, and eventually they brought someone down to take it off me, and I was in overnight, and they had booked me for surgery 3 months later. And so I went home to my flat, and one of my parents had brought me home to my flat, but the thing was, they just had no concept of what I'd gone through. They had no concept of what pain I was in. They had no concept of what needs I had. They had no concept of, like, they never did anyway, but this was just another hot example of how little awareness they had around me, and my worth. And just not being able to deal with a crisis too, like they just didn't know how to deal with a crisis. They wouldn't see you through it, They wouldn't see you through it, so so just weird things like I would have to go. I lived at the top of this hill at the north side of the city, and I would have to go down to the town to get groceries and things. So what happened was I just stopped eating for about 2 months because I was in too much pain to do grocery shopping for myself, and it was just easier that I just rested, but then. So that was really bizarre because I had to wait 3 months for surgery, and I was on painkillers, and they didn't manipulate my collarbone, and really weird, like, even though I'd given them like private insurance, I still had to wait 3 months for surgery, which I thought was crazy. And so when it came to doing the surgery, they realised that they had to take a piece of bone out of my hip and put it into my collarbone. And when it finally came around to do it, I started to see a shamanic healer, and she had kind of prepped me psychologically for the surgery, and then what happened? So the weird thing in the meantime was I didn't really hear from him. Oh no, I had gone back training, but it was so bizarre. Like, I shouldn't have been there, like, I shouldn't have gone back at all. And I had my arm in a sling, and it wasn't good, and I had done even some training out in Blarney, and then my sister had come to collect me because a parent couldn't. So things like just narcissistic family, and she had broken up with her boyfriend, and she was hot jealous, and she just was livid, and then she pulled up in the car at high speed and slammed on the brakes right in front of me, like, and here I was, like, with a broken collarbone, dying of pain. And she had no concept of what pain I was in. She just had no concept of what pain I was in. and I got into the car, and she didn't give me a chance to put on my collar, my seatbelt. And my collarbone was in the way, so it was a bit of an ordeal to do it, even under the best of circumstances. And so I just, and next thing she sped up and was speeding off while shouting at me. And it was like a horror movie. It was like something out of like some sort of Hollywood movie where it's just high drama, It's like, anyway, I threatened to slam the handbrake on her, and eventually she let me out of the car, but she was screaming at me to say, she was like, I'm the fucking princess, you do what I say. So this is like my wealthy older sister, right? So it was like, it was just total madness. Like, I was ringing my other friends to get them to pick me up, but like, they had been drinking, so they couldn't pick me up. So, but when I caught up with them later, they were like, what? What the hell did your sister do to you? So, but my sister like stopped the car, and then I was trying to run away from her, like quite literally, and she sped the car up the driveway of a house that I was crossing, and it was like she just wanted to kill me, like, I mean, she stopped like an inch away from me and slammed on the brakes. I thought I was gonna die. So, like. So this is like my twin flame journey, I mean. And then, so what happened then? I went back to, so I waited and I had the surgery, and, I remember the week before the surgery, he didn't even say anything about it. He just said, bring in some brown envelopes next week. And I was like, you fucking asshole. I just wanted to kill him. I was like, the shit I'm going through for you. And I fucking knew. So anyway, I was like, I'm just going to go through this. I just thought there's nothing I can do. I have a broken collarbone. It's fucked. And it's not good to have an open bone like that. It actually makes you very vulnerable spiritually, And I had learned a lot about that through the training, and how even since then, what I've learned is how sensitive the collarbone's in, and that the collarbones will actually lead the energy into your heart center. And they're actually really sensitively, very specifically designed bone. There's a slight kink in them. Like, and I think that energetically they allow energy into your heart. And I think if one is broken, then you're in trouble, especially when you're as sensitively as aware as I was, So, so I went through the surgery, but it was horrific. Like, it just went from bad to worse. I had the surgery, and I went. It was in this old hospital that's about 100 years old, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was filled with ghosts and entities, because it was really, really old building. Like, I think it used to be like a nun's convent. So I went in and I had the surgery, and like, at this point, my awareness, because the pain I was in all the time, it was like I was an enlightened master. It really was. I was an enlightened master. It was like, oh my God. It was like psychically, there was no limits to me, And, and even though I was in so much pain, it was like spiritually, it was like the height of my spiritual awareness. Like, I couldn't even... It was just like, yeah. And then, so I went in for surgery, and I had to beg my mother to bring me up. And actually, I would have been better off if I just walked there myself. And so I went in, and I had my few bits that I'd brought with me, like a book and a stone that I had. And I just had this dreadful experience of my own mortality, like feeling like I was going to die. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I just was like, oh my God, I don't know, it was like, it was so weird. It was like the last rites. And actually a monk came in because my mother probably wrote in the form that I was religious, but actually I'm not. And so next thing a monk came in to pray for me, and I kind of had said to him, I said, I'm sure I'll be fine. I said, no need for your prayers, I'm sure I'll be fine. And I probably shouldn't have said that, but I did. And next thing he made a point of looking at the name on my chart, like he wanted to find out who I was. And then, because it was like my mind was so pure. It was like my mind was so pure. And here's this guy coming in saying he's going to pray for me. And I was like, I don't think, it was like, it was like the most pointless thing on pointless planet. Do you know what I mean? I just was like, because I'd gone through so much. I was literally in pain for like 3 months solid. And so anyway, then I went in for surgery, and the first time they gave me the gas, and that was upsetting too. So I had going through the mortality of the gas, the life review, just terrified, just scared, just really scared, terrified, like not knowing what to do, like just feeling like, how the hell did I get myself in this position, and having to kind of literally humble myself to the anaesthetist. Like, oh my God, I have to let this person take control of me, Oh my God, it was so difficult for me, even at the best of times. And then, anyway, the surgery was, it was just horrific. It was, what I remember of it is I woke up early from the surgery, and I woke up too soon. The anaesthetic hadn't worn off fully, and the part of my brain that functions for my sight stopped working, so I couldn't see. I was talking to the I was in so much pain. I had a hole in my hip and a hole in my collarbone, and I was just screaming non-stop. It wasn't normal screaming. It was just like haunting murder screaming, it was. And I remember the porter talking to me, and I was saying, why can't I see, and anyway, it was like, in that moment then I was searching my body for even a cell that wasn't in pain, I was like, if I just find a part of my body that I could hide in temporarily, and maybe I'll get through this, but it was just, it was like a crucifixion. It was literally like they were murdering me. And anyway, I searched my body, scanned my whole body to find a place of no pain, and then I felt my soul go up through the top of my head. And it wasn't like a big, bright light, beautiful experience. Actually, it was quite scary. It was like I was in, and it's very like one of the Alex Grey paintings with all the eyes. It was like I was in this kind of cosmic tribunal, where it was surrounded by dark figures. It were all really dark figures. And then, all really dark figures. And then, it was like they were deciding whether I should live or die, It was like, and I was like, I had a walk-in experience then, because when I came back in, it was like a different soul that came back in, because it was like a different person came back in, because after my surgery I was feeling like there was two people in my body, and I couldn't figure out which one was staying and which one was going. And then so then it was, I remember being above my body begging the nurses to stop resuscitating me. And I was just saying, just put my body in the bin, just put my body in the bin, just stop bringing me back, put my body in the bin. You know, that's all I wanted them to do. And I was trying to get out of the room. I thought, I know if I get into a different body, maybe I'll survive, you know. But it was like, I didn't want to be my mother's daughter anymore. I just didn't want to be her daughter anymore. I didn't want to be the subsequence of her really foul decision making and just her lack of respect for herself and just a lack of love as well, you know. And then so I woke up from surgery and I had that blackout experience where I was like, it was like I was made of smoke. And I was searching for a body because I wanted a different body to get into, and I wanted this body to die. And it was like I couldn't get out of the room. They wouldn't let me get out of the room, and it was so annoying. I was like, if I just slip through this door, maybe I'll find a different body, you know. So, and then I blacked out then again, and the next time I woke up, I was in bed in the ward, and I woke up and it was like, and the porter that had been there came in, and actually it was such good therapy for him to come into me, because I would, you know the way people, the way they wouldn't tell you what was going on, the staff wouldn't tell you what was going on, and it was great that he was there, because he could reiterate to me the conversation I had had with him, and that was real, because otherwise I wouldn't have known it was real. And he stood at the end of my bed, and he had just such a shocked look on his face, and he said in the 32 years he had been working in orthopedics as a porter, he'd never seen anyone in that much pain, he said to me, straight up like. And I see, when I woke as well, I couldn't lift my body from the bed because my collarbone had a plate in it now, and I was in so much pain I couldn't actually move. I couldn't lift up out of the bed. I couldn't move my hands or legs. I might as well have been tied to the bed. Like, I was in so much pain I couldn't move. And then the surgeon came in. And looked at me through the window, like, it was really weird. He looked at me through the window and he said, he just asked, how are you doing, But it was like, it was just another intense relationship with the surgeon, because like, you go through so much in surgery, and the surgeon basically promises to keep you alive. I'd say it was tough for him, I'd say it was tough. Like, and he was so sensitive. We were so sensitive to each other. It was like, I was kind of like, thanks for keeping me alive, but like, not, and he was like, I'm really glad you're alive, but it was so close. I was so close to not being alive. And then, then I woke up in the middle of the night because the nurse came in to check on me with a torch, and all I saw was a zigzag light. I thought I was having another out-of-body experience, and I was like, I just started screaming. I woke up the whole ward. It's like, I couldn't stop screaming. It's just as well she didn't come close to me, because I probably would have killed her. And then, what happened then? So I woke up the next day, and the next day my mother came in with my sister, and it was like a total and complete rejection of my mother. I just started screaming at her. I just started screaming at her and screaming at her and screaming at her, and I didn't stop screaming until she left. And it was like her being in the room was reprogramming me to the same way, to the same conditioning, because I was so sensitive. My energy was so sensitive that I felt that her being there was reprogramming me to the same conditioning that put me there, you know? And so it was just like, get the fuck away from me. So, yeah, it's very fucked up. And then I rested, I think, after that for like a day, and then I went home. But it was so tough. It was so tough. It was really tough now, you know. And I asked the surgeon, could I get the plate removed, because I was very phobic about it. I didn't want it in my body. I had that feeling of like not wanting it in my body, like this thing, I was rejecting it, you know. And he said, no, it has to stay in there. Like, so I got the shamanic lady to create a contract with the plate that it would stay in there for so long, but that it wouldn't be there all the time. So as soon as the surgeon, it was about 2 years later, he'd let me do it. And as soon as I got the go-ahead from the surgeon, he said, as soon as I got the go-ahead from the surgeon, he said that, as soon as I got the go-ahead from the surgeon, oh yeah, he said that I could do it, and then I had it then. I had a surgery to remove the plate maybe about 2 years later. But, and that was the only difficult thing about that surgery was just the gas. They put the gas in at too high an amp. So the pressure was too high. So when the anesthetic was going in, it was extremely painful because the pressure was too high, because they did something stupid. I don't know why it was that high, but anyway. So that was the worst of it. I woke up with morphine, so I really didn't feel any of the pain that time. So it was just a totally different experience, you know. But on the way into that surgery, I did have the experience when the porter was carrying me in. I had this experience of these golden horses, and it was like I was on drugs, but I was stone cold sober. And it was like these horses. And it was like these golden ghost horses were following the thing in with me, you know. It was like there was 6 horses, or 3 on either side of me, and it was like an entourage of like golden light horses, you know. It was incredible. It was so amazing. I was like, oh my god, I'm experiencing this. And then so I knew in that surgery that I was going to be a lot safer, you know. And then I actually asked them to keep could I keep the piece of steel, and they allowed me, but I had to sign a disclaimer. So that was the kind of surgery, but it was the research I'd done in the years that would follow, which was mainly like I started an art therapy course that I didn't finish, but it highlighted the dynamics of dynamics were so high. It highlighted the dynamics of my family, which were so dysfunctional that you know, I couldn't continue on, and they couldn't allow me to continue on. So, and I had felt terrible rejection from that, you know, and I'd love to be able to go back and do it, but I'm still playing out the same patterns, you know. I still catch myself playing out the same patterns, and you know, and it's really difficult to kind of, you know, understand it and find a balance with it, because sometimes I will go back into the trauma again. If I feel too threatened by the world, I'll actually go back into the trauma again, because I feel safer in the trauma than I do kind of negotiating things with people, because my family would be really difficult when it comes to negotiating anything about my dreams or my career or anything. They would delay my time. They would discredit my ideas. They would discredit my desires. Oh, just unbelievable. Like, this went on for 30 years, like. And so, like, a lot kind of came out the back of that then, and just recovering physically took about 2 or 3 years, and recovering psychologically took about 7 years. And now I kind of feel like I'm back at the beginning in another way, because I feel like lately I've gone back into the trauma again, because I still haven't found a way to negotiate my needs with people, in a way that's safe for both parties. I still go into like just the extremes of things. So like there's a lot to come since that, but I think that's probably a long enough episode. Let's see. Oh no, okay, I'll go for a little bit more. And then but it was amazing because the image making brought up a lot of stuff. Like, the image making was amazing because it really highlighted what was going on, and like, I had huge issues with religion as part of society, because basically all institutes are ran through religion, and I find that really hard to accept. And I thought, well, if let's say if I was doing group therapy and most of the people in the group are all Christian and I don't consider myself to be Christian, then their beliefs would always overpower me, because I'm in a Catholic institution. So I found it really hard to find a place for myself, in that way. But there's another side to that as well, and that was kind of my parents' perception on money and lack and things. And so I always thought, so they would always like compromise my beliefs or my love and my affection for the needs of my sisters, let's say, or for someone else. They would, so, in many ways they made loads of money out of me, and so, so by the time I had kind of discerned my place relative to that, it's almost like it was too late in a way, because, no one would ever know, because, so, so it really did destroy my sense of self-worth, and, it put me in a really difficult position too, because the law will protect the family, but it won't protect the individual per se. So even when you get a solicitor involved or whatever, they'll still see you as a family unit. So that part was really frustrating too. It was really frustrating. It was just really frustrating. I have to live with it, because this is the way the system is, and I have to find some way to figure it out, or to have a way where I feel free and I can participate in this as well, So let me see what else was to come. I think I'm going to leave it there for now, because I've coming out of breath. But anyway, that is my second installment on the Twin Flame journey, and I guess the next part of it would be the thing with when my mother came into the room. I really wanted James to be there. It was I was so upset that he wasn't there. But the thing was, he wasn't in my life in a personal way, and there was no reason for him to be there. But I was just so devastated that my mother was there and he wasn't, you know. I was just devastated that he wasn't there because he saw the strength in me and he saw the aspects of me and he saw who I really was. And and as soon as my mother came into the room, it was like she kind of zipped the soul right out of my body, you know. And so, you know, there's loads of little things to come in terms of like, you know, synchronicities and stuff that came between us. And I didn't actually discover the twin flame journey until maybe about 3 years later. But I was just using my understanding of shamanism to monitor myself through the drawings that I did and stuff. So that was where I made the greatest discoveries, really, in terms of like what the next step was and stuff. Let me see. It was weird too, because as I was discovering about my family and how corrupt things were, and it was like I was starting to see the corruption with his family, and I was starting to see his mother's influence on him, you know. It was almost like as I was learning about my family and unearthing what was going on with my family, it was like we were swapping information and like what's it called? Remote viewing. It was like everything I was studying was going back to him, and he was learning from me and I was learning from him, like telepathically, you know, as we made the discoveries, you know. So like in the first 3 or 4 years of like not training with him, I would have been blaming him very much so for it, you know. But by the time I had done enough research and covered enough ground, it was very much the conditioning of the Catholic faith that I had issues with. With my family though, it's not like a new thing. It's very much like, it's almost like 3 or 4 generations back. It's like that's their mentality. It's about 3 or 4 generations old. So they look at me really stupidly and they don't know. It's really hard for us to relate. And you know, as well as that, there was huge chunks of history that my family would deny and they'd pretend that it didn't exist, you know, like the Civil War and things. And I thought acknowledging those things, because I had to come to acknowledge it because they were very much part of my history, and because I had to really understand my dad's side of the family through the training that I was doing, you know, because it was martial arts, you know. So all the training had very much linked to the male lineage, you know, and the male lineage in Ireland was very linked to the Civil War. So I would have made a lot of connections to the Civil War around my dad, and I think that's I think that protected his psyche as well as mine, you know, because I felt that there was a side to his psyche that was being denied because he was living with my sisters and my mother, and they would have had a very kind of like, they would have a very you know, conformist view of all of that stuff, and they would actually would have repressed a lot of the history of our family, you know. So as I unearthed that more and more, I felt that I kind of freed up the family lineage, you know. And my uncle gifted me a house, and when I first moved into it, I could feel the energies were incredible. They were so intense that like I would run down the stairs in the middle of the night and I'd feel suicidal. And I'd open the back door and I would cry like solidly for about half an hour. And then so like this happened over about a space of a year when I first moved in, you know, because that's how trapped I felt in the house at first. And then I had a dream that the ghosts were moving things around in the house and getting pissed off with me for getting rid of religious stuff. And then I had a dream that there was hundreds of people in the house. And after I had the dream about the hundreds of people, I had to kick them all out. So then it was like, So it was that was there was a big healing went on with the house when I first moved in. And it's very much linked to the Civil War in Ireland. And so that was, it just took years. It was like most people are looking for work or working and stuff. Like I was so fixated on my kind of soul growth that I literally spent years and I forgot to work. You know what I mean? I literally was like, I was joined in art groups and stuff, and I was just literally making art and things, and just exploring the psyche. But like, I never really concerned myself with money, or, and looking back now, it was a bit of a dangerous move, like, because I never gave importance to money, because I just saw it as something that people fight over, and I just stayed away from it for that reason. And so now when I'm trying to look for work and stuff, I still have that resistance of like, I want it, but I don't want it kind of feeling. And it's not a normal I want it, but I don't want it feeling. It's actually a very mortal, existential kind of feeling of like, is this going to be wasting my time? Is this going to be good for my soul growth? Are these people going to like offend my existence? So it's really hard to get a balance of what I should participate in and what not. So let me see what else. When I first stumbled on the twin flame concept, I just thought, oh my God, this is it. And then I was hearing other people's horror stories about their separations with their twin. I was like, oh my God, this is just too synced up, So anyway, I became involved in a myriad of different groups online. And some that lasted, some that didn't. But, I find even now, even though I feel like I've gone through a quantum of versions of the different patterning I've gone through, even though, I still feel like, I still feel like I haven't learned my lesson, and that worries me, because I don't want to end up in a trolley again, or in a hospital again, But I see, I think when I left the dojo as well, even though I haven't spoken about how I left yet, when I left the dojo as well, it was like suddenly something that used to be ritualistic was suddenly now happening mortally, So what was once, we would, in training, when you're training in martial arts, it's like a ritual. It's like you're ritually killing your ego, So you're basically living out an ego debt that you had in a past life, because you've stored it in your body. And so it was like ritualistically that had finished. So because it had finished ritualistically, it was starting to play out physically. So that was when it got dangerous. When we separated, it got dangerous for me anyway, maybe not him. And so it's like a tumbleweed of heartbreak after that, because it just put me on a downward spiral. And there was another rabbit hole, and when I joined Kung Fu, that was another rabbit hole. So it was like, there's more to come on that as well. But I think it's good for me to say all this, because I spent the last 2 weeks afraid to come online and actually talk it out. But I never got any retribution from it, because I didn't want to take him to court, because I knew I had strong feelings for him, and it would just be really messy, So, and plus I didn't want to do that to him anyway, because I'd learned so much from the training. And so it's still really sensitive, really awkward, still a bit raw, So, anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying the channel, and if you want to email me, you can email me at twinflamesundercover@gmail.com, or just comment below and I will get back to you. And stay tuned. Bye.